I let's talk about this for just a minute. The conversation that I just had with C. Edmund Wright. Probably I didn't. Well, not probably. I absolutely didn't use the best example I could have or should have in saying, hey, you know, I once worked in a gay bar and nobody discriminated against me. There is a difference, and I didn't have an immediate appropriate response to C. Edmund Wright, and my apologies for that. It took me, sometimes it takes a minute. So here's my thinking on this. And, you know, I see that the board is entirely full. All 12 lines are on hold right now, mostly about Obamacare, which we talked about in the last hour, which is fine, and I'll pick up your calls. But, you know, if you want to call and talk about this issue as well, this Edna issue, I think this is a big deal. And I think John Boehner is going to be hurt badly by this, by refusing, by saying, oh, there's no such thing. If there was, it wasn't a frivolous lawsuit. So we don't. But most importantly, setting aside the politics, I think it's a big deal because people's lives are being hurt. There's a difference between being in the majority and being in the minority. And that's what Jack Kennedy got and was talking about, and it's what Richard Nixon didn't get. And I don't want to characterize my last guest. He's not here to defend himself. But I would say in general that what John Boehner is saying is that he doesn't understand that difference. There's a reason why having a traditionally black college and continuing to call it a traditionally black college, or having an organization that's principally African Americans and continuing to call it the NAACP, is an okay thing. But having an organization that's the National Association for the Advancement of White People, or having a college where you say, you know, we're just going to admit white people, is not a good thing. Even though in the conservative world, on this kind of surface logic, that seems like a double standard. It's not, because it has to do with the tyranny of the majority over the minority. It has to do with economic, political, social power at the most visceral level. I mean, not just the power to employ or not employ, to educate or not educate, but the power to include or exclude from the mainstream of society in ways that lead to devastated lives, suicides, broken marriages, multi-generational crises and distress. There is a difference between being in the majority and having that white privilege, and in this case I would say straight privilege, that I have enjoyed all my life, and being in the minority and being a person of color and not having instant access to everything that a person born white in this country has, or being a person whose sexual preference is not plain vanilla, straight, normal, whatever you want to call it, and therefore falling outside of what you might call the mainstream, and being in a position where simply because of who they are with relationship to their perception of themselves with regard to their sexuality. And it's almost, sexuality is almost the wrong word because it implies that it's all about sex. It's not. It's about gender, their gender identity. It's about, who am I? Am I a white straight guy? Well, I am. But am I gay or straight? Am I black or white? Am I a person? You know, who am I? And if the answer to that who am I is something that falls outside the mainstream in such a way that the mainstream has a long history of not just pushing aside people of color or gay people, not just pushing them aside, but of destroying them. Literally from the founding of this country. People have been killed for being gay. To this day, Literally from the founding of this country to this day, people have been killed for being a person of color. White people can't make that claim because they've been the killers, not the killees. They've been the oppressors, not the oppressees. They've been I am part of that club. And it's those of us who are part of that club that need to really get it. That the logic that says, well, why can't black people get together and discriminate against white people? I mean, after all, why can't gay people get together and discriminate against... That kind of logic is fundamentally racist and bigoted at its core, because it fails to acknowledge the history. It fails to acknowledge the reality of those people's experience in life. It fails to acknowledge the extraordinary difficulties these people are having in this society as a consequence simply of who they are. Not even what they want to do. That's why I said it's not about sex. It's about who they are. And so my apologies for not instantly replying that way. I was so wrapped up in my own memory and story of Joe Cabela's bar that I just